don't know.
There may be a PDF file. I can copy
Yeah, I
that.
can send it. You come?
Do you have Telegram too? Or anything?
I can send it. But I have it.
No, it's on.
And also,
Yeah, there might not be here.
Start. Alhamdulillah. والصلاة والسلام رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah ta'ala we'll be continuing discussing the hadith that we have been discussing for the past few sessions. So hopefully inshallah ta'ala today we can complete this hadith. So we are discussing hadith ثاني وعشرون, which is the 28th hadith in the series of An-Nawawi rahimahullah. And we have discussed a different section of the hadith. So today inshallah ta'ala we'll try to complete what remains. So there's still much that can be discussed regarding this particular hadith, but we try to bring things to an end today bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So in continuing the hadith that we were discussing, that in the last session we discussed what we discussed in concerning al-ikhtilaf, the portion of hadith I mentioned regarding al-ikhtilaf. So today inshallah ta'ala we'll discuss what remains of the hadith, and that portion that we hope to discuss is with the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned hadith by stating where he mentioned after ميقان اختلاف فعليكم بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين أضوا عليها بالنواجذ وإياكم ومحدثات الأمور فإن كل بدعة ضلالة الحديث. So we try to discuss this portion of hadith today, and the focus bi'idhnillahi ta'ala will be concerning one where after Prophet ﷺ identified regarding of the illness that will occur upon the ummah, which is the ikhtilaf wal iftiraq. So of the illness that will come upon this ummah, that we have differences, and these differences that they have led to the Muslim being split and divided into different sects and groups. So we have discussed some of those differences in the last session, and today inshallah ta'ala we'll focus regarding concerning, as they mentioned, the ilaj. So we mentioned concerning the dawa. So we know what the illness is, and also that will come upon the ummah. Then the Prophet ﷺ kind of somewhat, he have given us some form of dawa, the cure, the ilaj regarding how the person to protect himself from the differences that will occur between the Muslims. So we discuss concerning that matter, which will include regarding known of the sunnah, and also the way of the Khulafa al-Rashideen. Also discussed, then he mentioned Islam, that a caution against al-bidah and the outcome of bidah. And so that's concerning what we hope to discuss today bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So in continuing the hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ. So when the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this before, mentioned regarding the ikhtilaf, that we'll see many differences between a Muslim, then how the person navigate when those differences occur. So when those differences occur, how should a Muslim navigate regarding dealing and overcoming these differences that will occur between a Muslim. So the Prophet ﷺ, as a way of now the ilaj, which is the cure of how the Muslim should function regarding these matters, he mentioned first فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي. So he kind of somewhat have commanded the Muslims that they should hold to his sunnah. Then he mentioned after this, they mentioned regarding concerning the word sunnah. So mentioned before regarding the word sunnah, as I mentioned, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي. So in the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned regarding a sunnah, and also he used the word sunnah also in relation to the Khulafa al-Rashid. So the Khulafa al-Rashidun, also he mentioned regarding that they have an established sunnah. So the word sunnah, as we had mentioned before, that may in different science may take different meaning. So the sunnah in reference to those things that the Prophet, so we discussed those matters before, that in each science regarding the ulama of fiqh, the ulama of usul al-fiqh, the ulama of hadith, the ulama of i'tiqad, that they all have a specific meaning to the word sunnah according to their science. So the ulama of usul al-fiqh, we see the words are used, the word sunnah will be different from how the ulama of hadith use the term as sunnah. And we had discussed those matters before. But Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, as we mentioned, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, of those who have explained this book, and one of the more detailed explanation of the book, that when he mentioned regarding concerning this section or this sense of the hadith, where he mentioned regarding concerning that where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِي. that he mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ, as he stated here regarding concern of Prophet ﷺ mentioned, فهذا خبر فهذا إخبار منه عليه السلام بما وقع في أمته بعدي. That he mentioned the Prophet ﷺ that now is mentioning after mentioning whatever would occur regarding his ummah, which is concerning that كثرة الاختلاف, where you find many differences will occur between a Muslim في أصول الدين, in the area of أصول الدين, the fundamental teaching of Islam, وفروع, and also the ahkam of Islam. Then he mentioned وفي أقوال, also in the thing that is said, والأعمال والاعتقادات. So you'll find that differences occur in all those areas, in our belief, in the things that are said, the things that are done. Also those matters will relate to things of the core practice of Islam, and also to, we use the word concerning the secondary practice of Islam. So which the ulama mentioned usul al-din, they mean at times meaning aqidah. So they mention the word usul al-din as when concerned ulama mutaakhirin, that they intend by the word usul al-din matter that relates to aqidah, and also furu al-din, what they intend by this is matter that relates to ahkam al-fiqhiyya. That's what how it is used regarding the ulama of mutaakhirin in most part. Then he discussed concerning that after this matter, then he mentioned regarding concerning, then he mentioned that وكذلك في هذا الحديث أمر عند الاختلاف أو افتراق والاختلاف. Then he mentioned that بتمسك بسنة وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين من بعد والسنة, and this is the Shaykh mentioned والسنة, given a definition of the word as sunnah. So I mentioned that each science, hadith, fiqh, usul al-fiqh, aqidah, they have a technical meaning for the word sunnah according to their science. But then give them Ibn Rajab rahimahullah will give us now a more comprehensive definition, where he mentioned a holistic definition mentioned. As for sunnah, here at-tariqatu al-masluka, that sunnah, it is the path that is followed, so the straight path that is followed. فيشمل ذلك التمسك بما كان عليه هو, and also this will includes what to hold to what the Prophet, meaning huwa, meaning the Prophet ﷺ was upon, so to hold firmly to what the Prophet ﷺ was upon. وخلفاؤه الراشدون, and also is rightly guiding khulafa من الاتقادات, in matters of itiqad, matters of belief, والأعمال, things of practice, والأقوال, and also things of statement. Then he mentioned وهذه هي السنة الكاملة. So he mentioned that Ibn Rajab, that this is the more comprehensive meaning of the word as-sunnah. ولذلك كان السلف قديما لا يطلقون اسم السنة. Then he mentioned that you find that the salaf, the salaf from the pious predecessors of old, لا يطلقون الاسم السنة, that they will not use the word sunnah إلا ما يشمل ذلك كله, except that they only use the word sunnah with that comprehensive meaning. So when they use the salaf, when they used to use the term sunnah, they use a meaning, it relates to matters of belief, and also matters regarding things of our actions, and also things of one statement. So the deen concerning it now, it includes the entire deen. So that's concerning that he mentioned that فَقَدُرِّيَ مَانَ ذَلِكَ, and also that it has been narrated, transmitted of some of the ulama of the past who they use the word sunnah with this meaning. Hassan yani al-Basri, Awza'i, wa Fudail ibn Iyad. So he mentions an example. So he mentioned an example concerning of the ulama of the past, that when they use the word sunnah, it will take that comprehensive, holistic meaning. So let's note that the word sunnah in this context of this hadith, then it is more applicable, that the word sunnah, it takes on that meaning. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي. So we're going to concern to know that for you, the Muslim, that you should hold to what the Prophet ﷺ was upon regarding his sunnah, regarding matters of belief that he taught, also things that he did, and also the way that he conduct and behave, and the thing that he would have said. And also this would include what the Khulafa al-Rashidun were upon, and also this would include similar what the Khulafa, what the rightly guided Khulafa were upon. So we're going to concern, so the word sunnah would also extend, would include what the Prophet ﷺ was upon, and also the Sahaba from the Khulafa al-Rashidun. So that's concerning what Ibn Rajab rahimahullah defined as sunnah. So it says sunnah that would include regarding what the Prophet ﷺ was upon, and also the Sahaba of the early generation. Then he mentioned after then that the reality, haqiqat al-sunnah, the reality of the sunnah, al-ittiba. So if you want to concern so sunnah and the reality of the sunnah, what the sunnah actually requires from the Muslim is for the person to act according to it. What is required from the Muslim regarding knowing of the sunnah is for the person then to act according to it. So the sunnah will give everything in its due proportion and the person act accordingly. The person act according to the sunnah, according to how the sunnah is laid out and in the how it is laid out and how the Prophet and how it is specified. So that's concerning the sunnah. So as-sunnah al-ittiba. So sunnah meaning al-ittiba. Then also, as we the Prophet in this hadith, so kind of somewhat he mentioned that stick to his way, but he didn't just stop there. Then also include concerning sunnah al-khulafa al-rashidin al-mahdiyin min ba'di, according to some narration. So the Prophet also he instructed and commanded Muslim that they should hold to the way of the khulafa al-rashidin. So the khulafa al-rashidun, that one should hold to their way. So it shows regarding that this hadith is a proof regarding following the path of the Salaf al-Salih, starting with the Sahaba. So this hadith, it proves that it is important and a part of the deen that in following Islam, the person also, he followed Islam with the understanding of the Salaf from the Sahaba, starting with the Sahaba, and also their understanding of the deen and also their application of the deen. So we use them also as a measuring stick regarding knowing what is said to be correct and what is not correct. So what is correct is what is in line with what the Sahaba were upon, and what is not correct is that which goes in contrary and opposition to what the Sahaba were upon. Then he described concerning the Khulafa al-Rashid. So described concerning the Khulafa al-Rashidun that the Prophet mentioned concerning the word al-Khulafa, yani Jam, Khalifa. So Khalifa is that the person who succeeded you. So it's like a successor. But he mentioned that al-Khalifa, kulla man qam maqam ghayru. That anyone who can somewhat replace the person before him. So the person somewhat you continue with what the person before you were upon. So that's the way of the Salaf and the Sahaba. So the Sahaba was just a continuation of what the Prophet Islam brought to the people regarding concerning the understanding and the application. And they meant by in this hadith, they meant by al-Khulafa al-Rashidin, as that it mentioned Mahdiyin, that it mentioned that this is those that are intended are Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, then Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and also added to this Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. So they are the Khulafa al-Rashid. They are the Khulafa. They mention that sometimes in most cases, when one would mention regarding concerning the Khulafa al-Rashid, that they are more mentioned the first four and less the fifth. I would say the fifth Al-Hassan. So Hassan is mentioned, said that as his leadership was just 6 months. So his leadership was only 6 months, short time. So they mentioned regarding Aghlabiyya, that those four are the more renowned and last for longer years compared to Hassan. In this case, but Hassan, but Al-Hassan is considered to be of the Khulafa al-Rashidun. Then the Prophet mentioned regarding of their sifat, that he mentioned of their sifat, that these Khulafa, of the ulama, sometimes they include concern of the Khulafa al-Rashid. That at time they will mention regarding Khulafa al-Rashid, they will mention Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah ta'ala, anhu. So Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, that this is one of the grandsons of Umar al-Khattab. That also that he became one of the leaders of the Muslim. So he became one of the leaders of the Muslim, and of those leaders who was an alim. And of the one that they mentioned that is leadership compared to Constantinople. So you find that when Hassan gave the leadership to Muawiyah to unite the Muslim, then things occurred, of certain change that occurred. They mentioned that when Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, when he was the one who was appointed the leader, he kind of he brought things back to the way of the Salaf, or to the way of the Khulafa al-Rashid. So Umar Abdul Aziz would be an alim, and also put a lot of emphasis regarding ilm, of those who's instrumental regarding of concern the hadith being codified, being gathered in a form of books. So he was somewhat a person who promoted ilm and the ulama and establishing Islam in its pure form. So at times they mention him as being one of the khulafa, some mention him as the fifth, but correctly that Al-Hassan is the fifth, not Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, rata'ala anhum ijma'een. And also Omar ibn Abdul Aziz is not from the Sahaba, not from the Sahaba. So the ones that I mentioned, those four, they are from the Sahaba. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he went on to mention regarding, or give description of the khulafa, of their distinguishing feature regarding that they are khulafa. They mentioned Mahdiyin, or Rashidin. They mentioned also Al-Mahdiyin, or Rashidin, that of Mahdiyin, that they are ones upon Huda, that they are upon, that their guidance and their rule was upon guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for a person always to be mindful of that Huda, Hidayah min Allah, that hidayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guiding them, regarding them, holding to the sunnah and to the way of the Prophet Islam and sticking to this. So they follow the way of the Prophet Islam and they kept this in place. So they're said to be of those concerned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them to that which is correct and protected them from dalal, misguidance. Then as for Al-Rashid, the ulama have mentioned regarding Al-Rashid, that description, that Al-Rashid, Ma'rifatul Haq, is a person knowing the truth, wa amal bihi, that a person who knows the truth with his evidence and of sakir, and then the person he act according to it. That's the person who's Rashid. So the person said to be the person upon rushd, that the person who he knows what is correct, and knowing thing which is correct with a person, he knows the evidence for the matter, for this thing that he's acting upon. So he knows the evidence for why this thing is said to be the haqq, and also then the person he act according to it. So the person may know the truth but does not act upon it, then that's not the person who's Rashid. Then so Ar-Rashid, man arafat al-haqq wa taba', the one who knows the truth and he act according to it, knowing the truth and act according to it. And to emphasize regarding concern the importance of sticking to the way of the Salaf al-Salih, if we were to look at the book of the Salaf, that how they emphasize, how the Salaf from the Atba' Tabi'in and onwards regarding how they emphasize all into the way of the Sahaba. And of those statements you find that Imam Malik rahimahullah قال Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, that Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, that he had mentioned, Sanna Rasul alayhi salam wa walat al-amr min ba'di sunanan, or sunanan, that the Prophet Islam, that he established, or the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he established a path, and those who came after him also tread that same path. أخذ بها الإتسام بالكتاب الله, the one who owed to the way of the Prophet Islam, and the khulafa after him, the one who owed to that way, he mentioned, then a person he has owed, that a person he has owed firmly to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَقُوَّةً عَلَى دِينِ Islam, على دين الله, and a person will be firm, will remain firm, steadfast on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَيْسَ لَأَحَدْ تَبْدِيلِ, it's not for someone to change this and to go away from this. He mentioned to change this, وَلَا تَغْيِيرُهَا, nor for a person to alter this or to change this, وَلَا another فِي أَمْرٍ خَالَفَهَا, and not for a person to look into something that goes in opposition to this. Which is, we said, what are those things he's talking about? The way of the Prophet Islam and the way of the Sahaba. So the person will look to the way of the Prophet Islam and the way of the Sahaba, and not try to change it, not try to alter it, not try to look elsewhere that goes in contrary to this. He mentioned those things. They mentioned وَمَنِ اهْتَدَى بِهَا فَهُوَ مُؤْتَدٍ, that the one who owes to his guidance, or the one who followed his guidance, then he's the one who's guided. The one who owes to his guidance, then he's the guided one. وَمَنِ انْتَصَرْ بِهَا فَهُوَ مَنْصُورٌ, and the one who seeks glory from this, then he's the one who's triumphant. Then I mentioned وَمَنْ تَرَكَهَا, as for the one who leaves this, وَاتَّبَعَ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and the one who follow other than the way of the believers, meaning the Sahaba, وَاللَّهُ اللَّهُ مَا تَوَلَّى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will abandon him, وَأَصْلَهَا جَهَنَّمْ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا, and his path will be that of Jahannam. So it shows regarding the Salaf, that they were very, understand that they very keen regarding the importance of holding to the way of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and that of the Sahaba. And that statement of Imam Malik upon Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, it is mentioned in the book of Abdullah ibn Ahmed, is a book that is called As-Sunnah. So the son of Ahmed rahimahullah is a book called Kitab Sunnah. It's a book in Aqidah, it's in print. So the book in Aqidah is in print, and of those books of the Sunnah regarding I'tiqad, that narrations are mentioned with the isnad. So those are the books of the early books of Aqidah that are musnada, that are written with their isnad. And I mentioned the isnad, Husayda, I mentioned the isnad regarding that narration is authentic. So that's concerning emphasizing the importance of holding to the way of the Salaf al-Salih, as we had mentioned. Then of those matters that are discussed regarding the way of the Salaf al-Salih, regarding the Sahaba in particular, of the Khulafa al-Rashid. So more so those four, Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, wa Ali. Of the discussion that also that matter they discuss in matters of in fiqh or usul al-fiqh, so fiqh and usul al-fiqh, that the position, if a matter has been agreed upon by those four, Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, Ali, does that count as an ijma or hujjah? Does it count as ijma? So if Abu Bakr, the Khulafa, those four take a position on a matter, is that considered to be ijma? So in the bab of ijma, between the ulama and the books of usul al-fiqh and also amongst the fuqaha, they'll have that discussion. So of those proof, that's something that can be used as a legitimate proof. Is matters that are agreed upon between the Khulafa al-Rashidun, does that constitute an ijma? That becomes binding upon everyone to follow. Is that considered to be ijma or not? So you find the ulama of usul al-fiqh, they have a discussion regarding that matter. Of those who, so you find that of those who mention, it's not considered to be ijma. So the more correct view they mention, it is not ijma. It's not considered to be a consensus, but rather they say it is still an hujjah. So it still uses a proof, but it's not classed as ijma, but it's still a proof. So you find that something you might find in books of in fiqh, when you read certain books of fiqh, that a matter may be discussed. So it's not. So you have those who say it is hujjah, but not ijma. But those. So if you find a matter where they, and that's a riwayat Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, but you find a matter that you find that they may be on those four take a position, but you find other Sahaba take a different position. Is a matter still against? It's a matter still of khilaf bin Sahaba. But you find a matter that only those four and others are of a particular view, and there's no one or challenging them on that view of an opposing view, then that becomes hujjah. Their opinion becomes hujjah, not ijma. Not ijma. So four, comes to you have other Sahaba that is alive during their time. You understand? So hujjah or ijma is when all the ulama and mujtahideen of that period that they agree upon something. So you might find the majority, or you might find the mas'ala that says so. So if there's their opinion, so which is the next matter discussed in ijma, if you find a matter regarding that some of the Sahaba take a view, and there's no one among the Sahaba that is known to challenge them, that they mentioned that it goes in the matter next year regarding concerning qawl al-sahabi, in the matter of usul al-fiqh, where this matter is discussed regarding in the bab of ijma at times, and also the matter regarding concerning that qawl al-sahabi concerned as an independent one Sahaba having a view, is that considered to be a proof or not? So first you have solved that Omar might be of a view, and we don't know of anyone from the Sahaba who have said other than have contradicted their view or have an opposing view. Does that view of Omar then stand as a form of proof? Because there's no other Sahaba. But you find other Sahaba of an opposing view or of a different view, then it goes back to a tarjih as to research to see which of those views are more correct. So the difference between the Sahaba is not one is not giving precedent over the other until the person have looked into the matter. If you find a difference between the Sahaba, we find a matter, we find that one Sahabi or a few Sahaba take a position and it's not known that any other Sahaba have an opposing view. Then the view that is known from the Sahaba, then does that become Hujjah? Because no one have contradicted them amongst the Sahaba. Clear?
Okay.
But so that was the usul al-fiqh. Those matters are usul al-fiqh.
So that scenario where it spreads and no one opposes them, for the people that consider ijma, that's ijma sukuti.
And I'm saying that there's, don't see that's ijma. I said if it's, we say the case, because there's a ijma in the case of you mean multiple Sahaba. Yeah, of case if it's me a multiple Sahaba of a particular view, and there's no contrary, they mention that either ijma sukuti. If you go, they take that part of ijma al-sukuti, because there's no other. It's a group of Sahaba that have taken a position, and it's not known that anyone else opposed them.
And the others say it's just a hujjah.
Hey, so you have different matters. In those matters, you have different matter regarding one. If the Khulafa al-Rashid take a position, is it considered to be ijma? Then that's a discussion. Now, we said that in that case, if it is known that they are upon the Khulafa, that if you have other Sahaba go against them, there's a matter to be looked into. So it breaks down to different things. The general thing here is regarding is the Khulafa al-Rashid, if they were to agree upon a matter, is it considered to be ijma? So it's now you have different matters regarding aqwal al-Sahaba, different masail. But this one come regarding the bab of ijma is qawl Khulafa al-Rashid considered to be ijma or not. Outside of those who mentioned, it is more hujjah but not referred to as ijma. It is hujjah, it's evidence, but that evidence is not considered to be, it's not classed as ijma, but it's the evidence, it's a hujjah. So you find that they mentioned concerning that correct is not referred to as ijma, but it still stands as a hujjah. It still stands as a proof. And also you might find another area they discuss regarding if a matter, we'll find that the Sahaba, that they differ between themselves. So between the Sahaba, that you find that there's a difference between themselves. If you find that a position that is taken by the Khulafa al-Rashid and others, compared to other Sahaba on the next view, some people they say that the view taken by the Khulafa al-Rashid, that's a form of tarjih over the other view. So you find that two opinion, you find that the Khulafa al-Rashid, Arba, take one position, but you find other Sahaba on the next position. Then some of the ulama, they will see that we'll make tarjih, we can somewhat give preference to the view taken by the Khulafa al-Rashid, because they have been praised by the Prophet ﷺ. So them somewhat aligning to a particular view, it gives strength. That becomes a tarjih, a form of giving precedent to that view, because they are of that view, or of that opinion. So you find those masail that are discussed regarding the Sahaba. And you find that, of the ulama at times that may give precedent to the view of the Khulafa over others. They give precedent to the view taken by the Khulafa over other from the Sahaba. So that's concerning of those masail that relates to the next matter. Any matter in that? So can someone so said now of the thing regarding concern that matter regarding that matters that relates to i'tiqad, even matter that relates to al-fiqh, was-suluk, adab, that it is clear regarding the position of the Sahaba, then it's something that we should, we cannot neglect. And at times it could serve as a hujjah, as a proof. So books that will give us insight in the aqwal of Sahaba, are there books that have been compiled that can give us an insight regarding the position taken by the Sahaba? Are there such books? Such as? Muslim Ahmed. Okay, Mashi. So books that that we can find the aqwal of the Sahaba wa the Salaf, the Sahaba wa Tabi'een. So if you have the Sahaba, then the Tabi'een also follow. But books that kind of somewhat have been written and a lot of effort is placed in gathering the aqwal of the Sahaba and those after them from the Salaf. So we said Musnad. A Musnad by its name is just about the Prophet alayhi salam. Musnad of Ahmad rahimahullah, by the name of the book, is just about Hadith and Nabawiyah. Just by the name of the book. That's the next discussion. So that in
Ibn Rajab got a few books, I think he told you.
no, that's a
Imam Shawkani, he told us.
so those are latter days that are more. So that in so you find that so books that said that in matter of itiqad, that books have gathered the aqwal of the Sahaba. We mentioned the book of Sharia lil-Ajuri. So of the books that are considered to be the primary books in that area, a book that is called Sharia by Ajuri, as in print. So matter of itiqad, also of those works, the book of Al-Lakai, Shar Usul Itiqad al-Sunnah, another Al-Ibana Al-Kubra by Ibn Battah, that also mention aqwal of the Salaf in matter of Aqidah. Also the book of Ibn Khuzaymah At-Tawheed, Kitab Al-Tawheed, and others. So those are just example. Also the book of Imam Ahmad's son, As-Sunnah. Also the book of Ibn Abi Asim, As-Sunnah. So these books that they collect concerning matters of those books are particular field of Aqidah, but they give us an insight regarding the aqwal of the Salaf from the Sahaba wa Tabi'in at-Tabi'in. Nam, so said Al-Sharia, Ajuri, Ibn Battah, Al-Ibana Al-Kubra, even though it is not the entire thing is not in print, but a portion of it. We mentioned whatever and others that we had mentioned. Shar Usul Itiqad al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah lil-Al-Lakai. So those are important works. Then in fiqh, of those books in fiqh regarding getting an insight where we can find the aqwal of the Sahaba and the Salaf. So you have books such as Ibn Hazm book Al-Muhalla. Ibn Hazm book Al-Muhalla, that is in print, about 20 volume. Also of those works, Al-Awsat, Ibn Munzir, Al-Awsat. So, and also before them, the books of, as I said, Musannif Ibn Abi Shayba, and also Abdul Razzaq As-San'ani. So those books, Al-Musannif, those books are written more so to give us that gather the aqwal of the Salaf. So in matters of fiqh, you'll find that the Musannif of Abdul Razzaq and Ibn Abi Shayba that cover that in detail. So those are some of those works. So that's concerning matters that relates to that part of the hadith. In continue regarding the hadith, then the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, then after they mentioned regarding Iyyakum, they mentioned Iyyakum, they mentioned regarding concerning after they mentioned وإياكم ومحدثات الأمور فإن كل بدعة ضلال فإن كل بدعة ضلال. So the Prophet ﷺ then he cautioned against al-bidah. So I mentioned regarding the importance of sticking to the sunnah. Then the Prophet ﷺ then he cautioned against al-bidah. So we have discussed concerning bidah before in previous the hadith of Aisha and previous hadith before. We have discussed matters concerning al-bidah by way of tarif, definition of bidah, and other matters, asbab al-bidah and the likes. Just anything to add regarding that matter? Any shows regarding concerns to know that bidah is something that the Prophet ﷺ that he cautioned against and forbid that a Muslim, and bidah in this context meaning concerning matters concerning al-bidah al-muhdathat, matters regarding ad-deen. So matters not in relation to things of the newly invented matters regarding things of the dunya that riding should we drive cars, not drive cars? Can we ride into? Can we use planes, not use planes? That's not the matter that's being discussed. So those things, then you use what is available in your time. So as for bid'ah, wal muhdathat is in relation to ad-deen, in specific regarding matter that relates to the deen. Then they mention here regarding concerning of those matters regarding muhdathatul umur, that to show the middle mention concerning that tahdhir min al-bid'ah wal khuturat al-bid'ah, showing concerning that the evil of bid'ah or al-ibtida. So to show there, to highlight the evil of al-ibtida. What are some of the evil, the consequence of the evil of this? One concern of the evil that attached to al-bid'ah fi din. So al-bid'ah fi din is that the person who innovate this matter, the one who's the innovator, who have brought about this matter, that is placing himself on par with the Sharia, with Ashara, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the person who's introducing this new matter regarding the deen, then he's kind of somewhat, he's putting himself in line or equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Islam in making legislation. So that's concerning that matter. As also mentioned, أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ مِنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَحْذِمْ بِإِلَّهِ. So Allah subhanahu mentioned, أَلَّهُمْ شُرَكَاء, do you have partners, others, that legislate matters regarding the deen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give them permission? Now, so the person who's a person who's innovating these matters regarding the deen, then they're saying that we have the right to legislate. We have the right to legislate, and they're putting themselves on equal par with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second of the evil of bid'ah, that al-bid'ah, al-ibtida fi din, mu'anida, that it kind of somewhat, it oppose ash-shar, is that the person going in contrary to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, opposing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the person going in opposition to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also the person innovate, then that person is not a true follower. As al-mubtada lam yakun muttabi'an, the person that innovator, then in reality he is not a true follower of the sunnah. He's not a true follower of the sunnah, because he's putting his desire in front of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated by way of his Prophet alayhi salam. So the person now is going against, in opposing the Prophet alayhi salam. So al-ibtida is a form of opposing of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have legislated and his Prophet alayhi salam. So as mentioned by Ash-Shatibi rahimahullah, where he mentioned al-mubtada, the person al-mubtada, mu'anid li-shari' wa mashaqa lahu, that the person who is a mubtada, an innovator, then this person is like he's obstructing, opposing the shari' with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also that is conflicting with the shari', the legislator with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also the mention of the signs of this, and you might find that, where do you find concerning the people who, that you find that the people who somewhat upon bid'ah, that opposer of the sunnah, that in most cases, that their bid'ah, they cannot be traced back to the salaf. Most cases of the ahli bid'ah, that their bid'ah, it cannot be traced back. It cannot be traced back to the salaf, to the sahaba and the likes. And if they do so, it's by way of lying and making things up. It's by way of lying and making things up. So you find that, in general, they can somewhat try to distance themselves from ittiba as-salaf. So ahli bid'ah, in most part, they try to distance themselves from having any affiliation to ittiba manhaj as-salaf. So as mentioned by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, shi'ar al-bid'ah, that of the signs of al-bid'ah, huwa tark al-intihal ittiba as-salaf, that they can somewhat, they remove themselves from any affiliation to the way of the salaf. And you find that. They find that person, a person might say, even a person said that, to use the word salaf, they find it difficult to use the word salaf. Ana salafi. Ana ittiba manhaj salaf. They find it that difficult. And that's because the person that, you understand, that because that they have their own shubha, that they're trying to hide, so they can somewhat try to distance themselves from ittiba manhaj salaf. And we're not saying that everyone who claims to be upon ittiba manhaj salaf, that they're correct in this, in their affiliation. We're not saying that everyone who may claim that they follow the way of the salaf or salih, or manhaj salaf, that they're actually the true representative. That's not the that. So that to be clear. So you might ask the person, do you follow the way of the salaf? They'll try to give all type of excuse. If I give you an excuse, they know the person, then there's a problem. Then it's an indicator of a problem. So if it's something you believe to be correct, then why you are somewhat reluctant to have that affiliation. Put aside, you said, no, people who may misrepresent, put them aside. But as for the manhaj, as for what it represents correctly and uphold, then a person should not feel no shame in affiliation to the way of the Salaf al-Salih. Then third of those things regarding khuturat al-bid'ah wal-ibtida' fi din, that a person in reality, and a person that indirectly saying that the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is naqis. The person upon bid'ah, ibtida', those upon ibtida' or innovate regarding the deen, then they're indirectly saying, or directly saying at times, that the deen of Islam, it is incomplete. What they concern what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, that it is not complete. Because you're coming with addition. So you're saying that whatever the Prophet ﷺ came with is not sufficient. Why you're adding things and bringing up and bringing new things. So that's an indication that the person does not believe that what the Prophet ﷺ came with is complete, but rather there's things to be added. And as mentioned by Ash'ari, they mentioned next of those matters, al-ibtida', that it's opened the door concerning ibtida' fi din. It opened the door by way of for people to change things, and anyone to just change what they want. So ibtida', it opened the door, it opened doors for people who want to bring about changes, says to change the deen, and also create fawda, confusion, and also tabdeel, and also kind of somewhat to alter, to change of the deen. So al-bid'ah, it opened a door regarding these type of changes that people wish to introduce to the deen. And when a person opened this, if you can do it, then why can't he? So when you open that door, if you're going to somewhat give allowance to this person, then why not give allowance to that person? So al-bid'ah, it opened that door for anyone to come with whatever changes that they wishes regarding Islam. Also, they mentioned ibtida' of the evil, khuturat al-bid'ah, al-ibtida' iftira' ala Allah, that a person actually is lying upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The person is a lie upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the person said, I'm bringing something from myself that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm attributing it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the person is bringing concerning that I'm bringing this thing, introducing this thing, but the person attributed to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is no proof in the Quran, the sunnah of this matter. So how can you say it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then that's a lie upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that's a lie upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, al-ibtida', that other thing concerns now also al-bid'ah, after the evil thing that I mentioned, that it opened the door to dalal. That al-bid'ah, it opened the door to dalal. So misguidance of people, many of the people, is through way of al-bid'ah, with a person trying, so al-bid'ah, it opened the door to dalal. And lastly, we'll say regarding al-bid'ah, of the khuturat al-bid'ah, al-bid'ah, يعني من أسباب التفرق والاختلاف. So you find that things of bid'ah, then it will lead to differences between a Muslim, those who accept and those who reject. And also that it leads to al-iftiraq, it leads to the Muslim separation. And as I mentioned regarding concern of that bid'ah also open a door to al-dhunub wal-ma'asi. And even become even more difficult for a person more difficult for one to rid oneself of bid'ah. As mentioned by As-Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, so Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, he mentioned al-bid'ah, that bid'ah ahab ila iblis. Bid'ah is more beloved to iblis min al-ma'asi, than that of ma'asi. That bid'ah is more beloved to iblis, alayhi la'natullah, min al-ma'asi, from that of ma'asi. Why? Al-ma'asi, as for al-ma'asiyah, things of disobedience, yatub minha, then a person does a ma'asi, you know that what I'm doing is wrong, but due to whatever factors he's involved in that thing, but he will not attribute that to Islam. But he does know that what I'm doing is wrong. So with bid'ah, the person is open to make tawbah because he does not attribute that act to Islam, but rather the person acknowledges that what he's doing is wrong. So there's always door for tawbah. Then they mention, amma bid'ah, as for bid'ah, la yatab min, that bid'ah, people does not repent from it. So ma'asi, people repent because they know they're doing something wrong. But with bid'ah, the person doesn't see it as something wrong, he sees it as a part of Islam. So it becomes difficult for the person to rid themselves and make tawbah from al-bid'ah. Then, of the next things that we'll try to be discussed, they mention aqibatul bid'ah, the consequence of bid'ah, the result of bid'ah, what comes with bid'ah, the things that comes when one is involved in an act of bid'ah. Of the result of bid'ah, or the consequence of bid'ah, al-lan min Allah, that a person become cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As mentioned, la'natullah man awa muhdath, the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon the one who comes about with things which are new. So it shows regarding the person who that supports bid'ah and those who are involved in bid'ah, then those people that they're cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as they're changing deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second of the consequence of bid'ah, ar-radd al-amal, that a person's action is rejected. So the person may be putting effort in doing something, an act, but that act in reality is of no benefit. The person not being rewarded for that action because he's involved in something which is a bid'ah, and bid'ah is unaccepted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Acts of bid'ah will not be accepted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person will not be rewarded for this act of bid'ah. As in the hadith I will discuss, because man amila amalan laysa li amrina fahuwa radd, the one who does an act that is not from our action, it is rejected, it is not accepted. So the person putting effort in this act, but there's no reward to come with it, so the consequence, the person comes in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and there's no reward for all that the effort that you did because you were involved in bid'ah and you thought you were doing good, but Allah musta'an. Also third, hurman at-tawbah, or hirman at-tawbah, that it blocks the person from tawbah. Al-bid'ah, it blocks the person from at-tawbah. As mentioned by some of the Salaf, they mention some of the Salaf rahimahullah, that they'll mention ma intakhala sahib al-bid'ah illa ila sharr minhu, that the people of bid'ah, they want to go from one bid'ah to something worse. So al-bid'ah, in most cases, and if they don't make tawbah, they find them somewhat going downhill from whatever, so whatever they're upon, they somewhat get worse and worse. They get worse and worse. And also, fifth, regarding al-bid'ah, or fourth, ad-dalal fi dunya wal-akhirah, wal-adhab fi al-akhirah. So, ad-dalal fi dunya wal-adhab fi al-akhirah. So, the person upon bid'ah, of those things, the person that is upon misguidance in the dunya and the akhirah, that is under mashiatillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that a person could be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what he did. As we see, al-bid'ah tahta mashiatillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where a person that under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may punish him. And also al-bid'ah, that also it opened the door to al-qital. So bid'ah is of those things that open the door, yafta bab al-qatl, dhulman wa udwana. That bid'ah, it opened the door for Muslim to kill other Muslim and try to justify it. So bid'ah is also a weapon that sometimes can lead to the bloodshed of Muslim. So find the Khawarij that have armed the Muslim, believing that they were upon the haqq. I said no, and it still continue upon today. Still continue upon till today. We find that because of a different type of bid'ah, that people have lost their life. People have lost their lives. Aywa.
But this masala is, when you talk about the people who are doing bid'ah, sometimes from my experience of traveling and being in places where some people who are upon dalala, like the Ramadan and things like that, they're shabab. So they follow this bid'ah, as you said, the effects of bid'ah is that people become misguided, right? So these young boys, they're upon dalala by following this methodology, but they're juhula, they're jahil, they don't know what they're doing is bid'ah. So this individual, the one that's following the bid'ah because of the effects of what bid'ah does, they fell into this thing. Now they've made bloodshed, for example, but they're doing it out of ignorance. So now when these young youth, which I've seen happen personally, they've been given the siha and been taught the correct end, they moved away from that. What happens to what they previously...
As for concerned that spitting of blood, then that's the next matter that goes by. That's a more deeper matter. You understand? That's a more deeper matter regarding if people blood have been spilled, then regarding concerns that is dealt with separately. You understand? Regarding concern that they don't go into, as I said, blood money at times is paid for lives that are, or if blood is spilled. So that's a different, that's a next level. So I said in general, regarding that it can lead to those things. Now that Muslims are killed, and so those cases are there, those cases that they are noted.
I've seen people quote the hadith here, and they said, the end, some people quote it, some people don't quote it. That part of the hadith, is it da'if or is it another reward?
So in some narration that he mentioned, which is not present, that the hadith mentioned that kullu bid'ah dalal wa kullu dalal fi nar. And that all bid'ah is in the nar. That narration come in Nasa'i. Even Nasa'i rahimahullah, can someone pointed out that there's regarding that additional wording or that the end of a sentence, kullu dalalatin fi nar, that there's some discussion regarding its authenticity. So you have that discussion with those who hold it to be authentic and those who hold that not to be authentic. But it does, but as for the narration, then that's a different matter. So inshallah ta'ala, so said that with this hadith, kind of somewhat in summary, so that with this hadith that have been mentioned here, of those things that you have captured regarding concerning that the hadith of Ibad and Sariya, as we mentioned, there's many things can be said, but we can somewhat try to summarize it. That the hadith of Ibad that mention of the benefits that the Sahaba asking advice from the Prophet ﷺ or for the Prophet ﷺ to give them some advice, and he gave them that advice. That advice was after we switched Salatul Fajr. As in some narration mentioned, then the Prophet ﷺ that it was for them. Something was said that they took heed to that advice to the extent that it caused some of them to shed tears and impact on their hearts. Then the Prophet ﷺ kind of somewhat summarized that advice was somewhat, we said that few words, as mentioned, that is word Jawami al-Kalim, that few words but very comprehensive in meaning. That few words or sentences that are mentioned. So of the advice that he gave, one wasiyat bi taqwallah, that he advised them regarding at-taqwallah. That's the first advice, we said and that's the peak of all advice regarding taqwallah. So you understand? So for the believers of those of Islam, consider the most treasured of advice. The most priceless of advice is at-taqwallah. Then also the Prophet Islam, he mentioned regarding as-sam' wa ta'a, and all these things that have been mentioned is a part of taqwallah. All that comes after is a part of taqwallah. So the person of taqwallah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he function according to the instruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By way of he does what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instruct, and you avoid that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbids. So of a taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as-sam'a wa ta'a, that a person obey those in authority, so to, in as we mentioned, bil ma'ruf. So not just anything that they say right or wrong, you only accept from others and the authorities that you listen and comply with things that are in line with Islam, bil ma'ruf. Then it mentioned, wa in ta'ammar alaykum abd, and some mention abashi. That part regarding concern, even kind of somewhat to emphasize that point regarding, even if the person who has been, that's the head of state, that as we mentioned, that he didn't comply with the proper requirements. So either this hadith, we mentioned abd, abashi said an abd, as we mentioned, the wali al-wama is not of the criteria for the head of state to be a abd, but for him to be a hur. So if the person who said the hadith either to emphasize the importance that whoever takes this position of being the head of state, you should go along with him, even if he's not the most qualified. But the fact that he's in this position of this role, then you hear and obey according to what is correct. Habashi, then it mentioned that abd also could mean concern that the person that for abd to be the leader mean that either he overthrow others to get that position. It didn't come by way of choice. It came by way of it was imposed on others. Clear? So either the person concerned, does that mean that either the person who's in charge, that he so the hadith here to this part to emphasize listening and obeying those who are in charge, as we have to emphasize this point and give the worst scenario. Or it meant that the person who's the abd, who's the leader, that he doesn't fulfill the criteria to have this position, so he got it through other means, which is either by overthrowing others, because he would not fulfill some of the criteria. Then it mentioned that إنه من يعيش منكم فسيرى اختلافا كثيرا mentioned فسيرى اختلاف, they use the word see, and they use the word see, not sofa. So sofa means something, both meaning something that occur in the future, seen in the near future, and sofa maybe more in the far future. But both will occur, so it mentions or emphasis that these things will occur, which is of the thing to occur, اختلافا كثيرا. I will mention some narration mention اختلافا شديدا. So you find that an ikhtilaf will occur between the Muslim, that ikhtilaf will be across the board in matters of aqidah, and also in matters relating to ahkam, al-fiqhiyya, adab, ad-dawah, all the areas of Islam. You'll find al-ikhtilaf. Then he mentioned, after outlining, which the way concerned is to also to caution the Muslim regarding, try to avoid falling into this type of ikhtilaf. So it's been mentioned, it will occur, but for you to try to avoid it, for you to try to avoid the ikhtilaf, but it will occur. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي, then also giving the remedy regarding how to protect yourself when you find the difference amongst the Muslim is present. If this have occurred, how to protect yourself to make sure that you stay upon the correct path, then he mentioned the formula for a person to stay upon the correct path. So that inshallah ta'ala, that's like the summary of this hadith that have been mentioned. With that inshallah ta'ala, we'll end this session being the last of this session regarding explaining this hadith. And being inshallah ta'ala, next week we'll start the hadith that follows. وبالله تعالى توفيق وادر السبيل الحمد لله رب العالمين.